Delighted to be the moderator for this important civic engagement event. So as I've been introduced, my name is Ron Watson. I'm an associate professor of political science and health and society, which is our public health program over at Beloit College. And so tonight we have with us three candidates who will answer your questions and a couple of other prepared questions that I have for them that they will all answer. And each will be given just a couple of minutes to formulate a response. Our goal here is to hear what the candidates have to say on these important points, as well as to get everyone through this and out the door at the end of the evening, hopefully satisfactorily. So without further ado, we will start with our first question. And that question is this. Many cities around Wisconsin have made commitments to clean energy and environmental sustainability as part of current and future development plans. Those commitments have resulted in substantial cost savings and cleaner, healthier cities for their residents. How would you prioritize these initiatives? And what specific commitments or actions would you push for during your time as an elected official? Okay, so there's a two-part question. We will have those questions put into the chat. But the first thing I would, as I'm sort of looking, one of the first things we might like to do here is actually hear who our candidates are. So before I dive into the question, let's hear from our candidates. Just give us just a brief couple of statements about who you are. All right, and so let's start with the first one on my screen, and that's Clinton Anderson, please.
Well, thank you, Ron, and thank you everybody for participating today. My name is Clinton Anderson. I am currently the Vice President of the Beloit City Council, and I am seeking re-election. Just a little bit about my background. I have been a lifelong Beloit resident. I went to Beloit Memorial and graduated in 2011, which oddly enough is coming up on my 10-year class reunion, which does not feel like 2011 was that long ago, but here we are. And then I went to UW-Rock County, finished with an associate's degree there. And then I went to UW-Whitewater and got a degree in psychology with a minor in sociology. Upon graduation, I worked at the YWCA of Rock County as a volunteer coordinator and a shelter advocate, providing direct client services to survivors of domestic violence. Currently, I work for a professional services group, which in my role, I'm a youth support specialist. So what I do is I work with at-risk youth developing social and emotional skills. And that leads to why I'm running. I'm running because I like to give back. And it's been who I've been this person my whole life. I've spent time as a youth hockey coach in the past. I currently volunteer on the Meals on Wheels board, and I also serve on the advisory board for Rock County Jumpstart, which helps Black businesses get off the ground. So I really want to continue to help my community. And while the big things that people see the city council do is pass a budget and evaluate the city manager, the things that really give me the most pride are direct constituent services, helping people with small issues, whether it's having issues with rent or having issues with a neighbor, or even when that Popeyes is coming. That's a question that comes up too. Those are the things that give me the most joy. And I hope that I will be lucky enough to serve another term on the city council and continue to do the work that we've been doing. So thank you for everybody being here, and I hope for a great conversation tonight.
All right, thank you, Clinton. Sherry, I'd like to come over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And thanks to all the groups that have pulled together tonight to make this meeting possible. They exemplify some of our city's finest traits: hard work and optimism for getting the job done no matter what, friendliness, perseverance, partnerships. Just so I don't turn into a giant cat on the screen this evening, I will call the evening quite successful. When I first moved to Beloit in 1974 to attend Beloit College, I found the city by the river charming and welcoming. It had a great library, restaurants with yummy food. Remember those relish trays at the 615 Club? And parks where you could bike or hike or just relax. And I felt back then that Beloit had even more potential. Especially in the last few years of our long history, we have come into our own. We've seen the revitalization of the downtown and Riverside Park made even more beautiful and its shoreline stabilized. play equipment updated at other parks, and many new businesses. I've lived and worked on the West Side. Santa and Mrs. Santa helped me gather nomination signatures at Dita's restaurant when I ran for my second term in 2018. I believe in them. You can trust me on that because I used to work for the Beloit Historical Society. I've lived and worked on the East Side. People all over Beloit want their neighborhoods maintained and kept safe. They want to know that they can make a living here, that the city is financially stable, and that it's a good place to raise their kids. As a third-term city councilor, I'll keep helping Beloit get safely through the rest of the COVID era. I'll help keep the city stable and growing financially. I'll continue to support diversity. And above all, I will encourage open communication between residents and the council. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you so much, Sherry. And Nancy, I'll come over to you now.
Well, my background has been as an educator, as a person who ran Visit Beloit. And so that really involved, at least at that time, a lot of event creation and also certainly marketing. And my last and longest job really was as the executive director of our Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce. So there you, of course, get a really close look at all the businesses that are so necessary and needed in Beloit. So I think that those 3 jobs has helped me create a really a good sense of being able to handle what a counselor needs to handle. Remember, the only person who we have a direct involvement with, who we have to judge and support, is our city manager. So it's important, I think, that all counselors are able to do that kind of job. Also, of course, I have to say that Lori is very willing to listen to all of us. And so when we perceive any weaknesses or see a goal that's really not being met in Beloit, we need to talk then to Lori and our staff about trying to get these things accomplished. Also, I've been here a long time, many more decades than anybody else on our council, but I have to say that I have 2 families, 2 sons with their families living in Beloit. So of course, everything I do, I want to be able to make Beloit even better for my young family. Thank you.
And thank you, Nancy. So once again, we will go ahead and I'll ask that question again, and we'll have, and Maggie, if you could just drop that question into the chat as well. So here's our first question. So many cities around Wisconsin have made commitments to clean energy and environmental sustainability as part of their current and future development plans. Those commitments have now resulted in substantial cost savings and a cleaner, healthier city for their residents. How would you prioritize these initiatives, and what specific commitments or actions would you push for during your time as an elected official? And so we will go ahead and start with you, Clinton, please.
Sure. So I know that, in our strategic plan, sustainability is one of the goals, and I hope to see us continue to have that in our strategic plan when we reevaluate that. I've also seen that communities like the city of Janesville just passed a resolution stating that they would like to see themselves be carbon neutral by the year 2050, and I think that's a very valiant goal. I also have good relationships with folks in Eau Claire, and they've actually pushed for this a long time ago too, and I believe their goal is 2030. So climate sustainability is really important, and we actually do have solar panels on the top of our City of Beloit Police Department, and I'd like us to continue to invest in that. Clean energy in the long run is more cost efficient, and if we're looking at being fiscally responsible, this is one way we can do it. Another thing I would like us to push for is to do more prairie restoration projects. Prairie grass and wildflowers, they absorb more carbon and they also look really nice, and the maintenance cost is significantly less too. So instead of us spending money on lawn care and landscaping, we can plant wild prairie grass and wildflowers, and we can save money and also make the city more attractive than it has been ever before. So those are a couple things I would really like us to do in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you, Clinton. Nancy, can I come over to you now for the same question, please?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that best practices, which is what Beloit is always so aware of trying to do within every city policy and action, already recognizes the things we've been talking about. And in fact, just this year, we have initiated some significant changes in our stormwater and sewer to make sure that we are being cutting edge as far as lessening any of the effluent that goes into our water systems. So really many of these good conservation projects are in fact being considered and are being brought in to the process that we do with the city. And I know what I would like to say is I believe that we right now have a city council that is very empathic towards any kind of conservation and sort of having a brighter, cleaner future. So we're aware always that whatever we do, we want to be able to be doing this best practice, which includes the conservation best practices.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Sherry, can I come over to you?
Certainly. Thank you, Ron. Conservation and energy practices, sustainability, they are all key phrases that we often talk about at council and among ourselves in less than walking forums away from council. Because as Nancy was saying, the members of this particular council, I believe, are all personally invested and recognize that climate change is very, very tragically real. But anything we can do to help slow that down or contribute to the cleanup of our atmosphere, the greenery is all for the good. I do not have a priority list at the moment for which plans I would like to see put into effect, but I know that the water plant changes, for instance, were a big deal to some residents. And I think it's up to us as counselors to interpret the work we're doing on the council and help explain to the general public what exactly we are doing and why we're doing it. And even get down to the grassroots of it all, sorry about that pun, and help people understand what climate change is about. And just because we are a small city in the Midwest, we are far from immune from all the effects of it. So I'm very much in support of measures that will carry us forward and help Mother Earth stay alive and healthy for a long time to come. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Sherry. So Sherry, you stated that you don't have a priority list, and that gets a little bit at the question. So I want to press my other two candidates here too. What measures would you prioritize? I mean, do you have any, if I've got to pick something, this is going to be the first thing that we start with. Nancy, can I come to you for that?
Well, I think what I'd have to do is talk to Lori and through Lori, then to our Public Works Department. I mean, for instance, I don't know, but certainly anything that, like Clinton mentioned, growing natural grasses and flowers. If, again, that is something that we'll be able to do both money-wise and also because, Ron, right now, we have been so focused and so overwhelmed as a city with our COVID actions and reactions that it wouldn't be the kind of thing where I could bring something and say, you know, let's do that now. But absolutely, I think anything that we can do, for instance, to get cleaner running city cars, you know, and trucks, etc., to changing or not even changing, because we've already done, of course, some great natural plantings up and down the riverbanks. So it's not that these things aren't known already, but encouraging even more of that kind of growth would, I imagine, be some of my, at least my interest as far as helping clean up our air.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And just briefly, Clinton, do you have something you would prioritize?
Yeah, so I think Nancy pretty much nailed it right now. COVID is a priority, but you know, we do have monthly calls with our city manager, and we talk about the current events that are going on. And I have floated the idea of the prairie restoration projects. I think that that is a relatively low cost measure we can do that could have long-term financial benefits and environmental benefits. One thing I forgot to mention too is that I learned this recently, that the root structure is much stronger with prairie grass and wildflowers than it is with the normal grass that we have in our lawns. So if we did something like that in the medians or at certain parks where there's just big fields, we could save money and also do a very positive thing for our environment. So that would probably be the priority I would ask for, because you know, we don't want to, we have a current budget now, and that, at least to my assumption, would be the least financial, the least thing that'd be the biggest financial change in our budget, if that makes sense. I kind of got tongue-tied there, I'm sorry. But yeah, it would be the smallest dent to our budget, I think, would be the prairie grass and restoration.
Okay, well, thank you very much. All right, candidates. I want to give you a few seconds to breathe here. And thank you for answering that first question so thoroughly. I want to come over to our second sort of group question that we have. And that is this: what are your proposals to increase diversity in community government and employment? And it's a two-part question. So the second part of it is, what are good ways to reach out to ensure we have diversity in either or both of these areas? And obviously this is Beloit, and we all know how important issues of racial and ethnic diversity, among other forms of diversity, are to our city. So this is the nature of this question. So let me give you just a second here, see if we can drop that into the chat. And yeah, so let's go to Sherry. We'll start with you first, and then we'll go to Nancy. You're on mute.
There we are.
Okay,
But no cat head, right?
Mm.
Okay. Well, I've seen in the 2 terms I've been on council so far, I've seen us take some very positive steps toward increasing diversity in our roster of public employees. For instance, 3 years ago, the total hires for the city were 190. Last year they increased. 2020, naturally, as with everything, they went downward. Not all employees have to list their ethnicity or race, you know, in that kind of quorum. But I know that the percentages of, let me just say, for lack of being able to use a more specific term, people of color in our police force, for instance, and in city staff jobs have increased. I know one thing the police department has been doing is recruiting at predominantly Black universities, which is, and other places, of course, you know, and we're hiring quality people, but looking out for people who in the past might not have even considered coming to a town like Beloit, not realizing that the diversity in our community will help support the work they do as a member of a minority group. They will help change the public face of our city. So I definitely support diversity. Now, I might have to refer back to the written question here for the second part. Oh, proposals to increase diversity and good ways to reach out. I think participating in events around the city is a good way to reach out to people with different backgrounds or different ethnicities or races. You know, we still have not as many, of course, but we may be expanding those this summer. Events like down at Riverside Park, when various nationalities, I have to stop now, but you get the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sherry. Thank you. Nancy, we'll come over to you. Go ahead.
Well, this is actually an issue, Ron, that we have been focused on since for the entire 3.5 years that I have been on the council. And so once again, I have to say that we have got a sitting manager who is very, very much aware that this is a goal that the council has to make sure. In fact, look at our council. You know, I mean, it is so wonderful that we have 2 minority members on our city council. It's great, and it helps every kind of conversation that you can have. So specifically, one of the things that I know that we struggle with, and this is not new, but back in the days when I was at the chamber and at Visit Beloit, how do we connect with our Beloit citizens to tell them about opportunities? One of the things that has happened just within the last year has been that the fire department once again started, I'm not going to be able to think of really the word for this, not an internship, but a junior partnering with high school and junior high kids to come on, find out a little bit about the work that the fire department does. And there again, the hope, well, first of all, just to have local people want to serve, you know, and have a really good job at our fire department, but also it can touch, especially of course with our Beloit Memorial High, the kids there. We can get hopefully some kids who are from the Black or Hispanic community to be interested in this. So this again was an outreach really driven by the concern to keep and increase diversity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. And Clinton, let's come over to you. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, going off kind of what they said too, I think the first thing is making sure that we have a culturally competent staff too, so that's a welcoming environment for new people. So that's step one, and we've already started to make steps towards that. For example, our Beloit Police Department just went through implicit bias training. This is the second go around that they've had it, I believe, and we've really been focusing intentionally on the police and fire departments because there is higher turnover there, so we're able to recruit and try to get more diverse candidates there. We've for the longest time have been working at Western Illinois University as a recruiting ground for us to get people to the police department. I personally would like us to start shifting to the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, not just because I went there, but I also know that's a very diverse campus. And on top of that, we get a lot of local folks that go to that school too. So I would really like us to head that way as well to recruit. And then when it comes to just city government, Nancy said it too, we have a very diverse council, and it's ages, genders, racial demographics, we're pretty diverse there. But when it comes to other things like boards and commissions, it's contacting people that we know that have diverse backgrounds and diverse voices and getting them to sign up. I mean, for example, I bothered our former city council candidate Marquise Terrell and got him on the Equal Opportunities Commission. And then I also bothered Gina Stevens and got her on the Equal Opportunities Commission as well. You reach out to people that have different backgrounds and you ask them. And I can tell you, sometimes they say no the first time, but if you ask them again and again and tell them we really need you, and remind them how important their voice and background could be to help make the city better, that's where we have to go. And I think we've seen our committees and commissions look a little more diverse than they used to. And that's not a slight on the people that used to serve in those committees. We're just finally seeing people getting out that aren't the standard government folks that are applying for the commissions now, and that's where it starts too. So like I said, culture competency, recruiting to other places, and also just getting people out. I was going to make this my closing statement, but if you're listening to this tonight, you are probably a good civically engaged person. go ahead and apply for a committee. And Yusuf Adama just mentioned I got him started too. Yes, I got Yusuf on the appointment review committee. So we've got a lot of great people that are applying. We need to continue that work. So if you're on this tonight and you're on a committee, no excuses, sign up.
I see Angie Lannon posting and he nagged me too. So I mean, this that's maybe one of the best compliments that you could have, right? When someone talks about nagging you about public service. So, all right. So thank you all candidates. So we're going to move into the second part of our questions here, and these are our random questions, and we had folks submit questions, obviously from the community and from a variety of different organizations over the past couple of weeks. So we have 16 questions here. And what I'd like to do is have each candidate just pick a number, right? And we'll try to get through as many of these as possible. We're hoping to get through at least a total of, 4, well, we're thinking 4 questions, but since there's 3 of you, we'll get through 3 questions. And then if we have time, we'll try to double that so we can get through more of the questions that people want to ask. So again, give me a number 1 through 16. We're going to go ahead and start. Nancy, we'll start off with you, and we'll go to Clinton and then to Sherry. Give me a question, a number 1 through 16, and then we'll go from there.
7.
7. Okay. So for number 7, someone asked this question: does the city have any plan to help increase the number of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color residents who have received the COVID-19 vaccinations? So that's your question there, Nancy.
Well, there are several activities happening right now that hopefully, am I understanding the question correctly? That how do people of color get the COVID-19?
So I'll ask the question again, and if possible, Maggie, if we can drop that in the chat too, yeah. So does the city have any plan to help increase the number of those residents who have received the COVID-19 vaccinations?
Well, absolutely we do. And community health is going to be getting vaccines to be able to help. And that is going to be a wonderful place where people who are not connected to our health system, the Greater Beloit health system, will be able to trust and to be able to get their vaccines from there. Also, just Monday night, we okayed Lori to go for a grant from the state that will help us reach out to these minority communities and make sure that we're doing everything we can to talk about how safe it is, how can you register, the importance of this for our community and their families. So I'm very happy that we're being real proactive this way.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. And so now we will come over to, give me a number. Clinton, I think were you next? Yeah, go ahead and give me a number.
See, Nancy took 7. How about, let's see, 5.
Okay, number 5. Does the city council have a goal in mind for reducing the number of rentals versus home ownership?
Yes, that is a good question, because I know that is a big concern in the community. And, it's not not saying that we dislike our landlords, but we know that home ownership does lead to a better community. So we have a great partner in Axe Housing, which is helping people that would traditionally be unable to or struggle to get a home, because that is a very difficult and challenging process. So they're the good community partner. And we're also renovating some houses. We have been doing that, and it's a slow process, I'll admit, but the houses are absolutely beautiful, and they're sold to low to moderate income families to make sure we can get people on a pathway to home ownership. Like I said, that's a very important thing. About 30% rentals in a neighborhood is healthy. We have a couple neighborhoods where that's well above the healthy limit. So anything we can do to slowly get people from renting to home ownership is a great goal, and the city does absolutely support that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much, Clinton. Sherry, can we come over to you then?
I will take lucky number 11, please.
All right, number 11. So number 11, What processes or policies does the city council plan to put in place to improve relations between police officers and residents of the city, particularly Black residents? And so obviously in the times in which we live, this is an extremely important question. So yeah, go ahead.
It is extremely important. I think our own police force in this last year, with the necessary marches and protests following the murders of Black men, especially by police around the country. You know, we had our own Black Lives Matters marches here in town. And at that time, I felt and I saw that our own police department really stepped up for that. There was one event I attended at Horace White Park, and afterward, people marched downtown to the police station. They were greeted there. It was a large crowd, you know, and they were greeted there in a calm, friendly fashion by the police chief at that time, a white man, and also Captain Sayers, a Black man. And the crowd yelled at them, take a knee, you know, in honor and in memoriam of those Black men in particular, who were so brutally and unfairly taken away from their loved ones. Immediately, the chief and the captain went to their knees and they held their hands up in a gesture of supplication, not only asking for grace and understanding and acceptance of people of various colors and ethnicities, but also begging forgiveness for our culture, which has been so white-based for so long. I heard a beep, but I don't see a stop sign yet. Okay. Also, I know that our officers have made a point of going out to neighborhoods and greeting people and meeting the children. I rode with one of the police chiefs, not this last summer, because it just wasn't being done during COVID, the year before. We went into neighborhoods and we drove past groups of kids, and the chief would roll his window down, reach his hand out to shake hands with people of color, especially the children, and to chat with them. I think going out and meeting the children and their families is a wonderful way to improve relations and show that our police department, that our Beloit police officers are doing their best to keep the whole community safe, but are not going to vent some kind of white segregationist racism against anyone from any member of a community of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And you know, I have really nothing but praise for the ways in which our police department has developed over the past several years. So, you know, it's a difficult job. We recognize that, and they've really stepped up in extraordinary ways that I think most people in this community recognize. Okay, so we've gone through questions for all of you. I would like to go through another round of questions, but this time through, because we have plenty of time, so this time through, what I'd like to do, have you still ask, you sort of ask a number. When we ask that question, we will give the other two other two candidates, an opportunity to respond to that same question as well. Okay, all right. So let's see, we'll go over to Clinton. We'll let you go first, and then to Sherry, and then to Nancy. So Clinton, why don't you go ahead and give me a number here?
How about 1?
Okay, so for number 1, here's the question. And this will be for everyone, folks. Most cities struggle with how best to address violence, property damage, and other criminal activity. And Beloit, of course, is no exception here. So what are some of your proposals or suggestions to reduce crime in our city?
That's a good question. Property crime is a big issue in our city, and even with us having, we've made progress in the police department, property crime is still an issue. One of the things is, depending on what that crime is, we got to ask, why is it being committed? Is it because of somebody struggling financially? So what I would say is continue to bring in good paying jobs. That is the route to help us reduce that. It's not going to alleviate the whole thing. There's still going to be, teenagers doing things like that. That happens. But if we can reduce the amount of crime being committed in our community by making sure people are lifted out of poverty, I think that's a good thing. For example, we have Amazon here. They're paying $15 an hour, and it's 1,200 jobs in our city. That's going to make this community more competitive. We're going to have more people getting access to living wage jobs. So I think that is the start, is just continuing to bring in good paying jobs into our community, making sure our residents have access to that.
Okay, thank you, Clinton. Nancy or Sherry, either of you want to respond to this question?
Go ahead, Sherry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I agree with Clinton that it comes from the inside out. It's not entirely a matter of going after the people doing the property damage. If someone does not grow up nurtured with dignity, and I'm not blaming parents here, I'm talking about the community needing to show the respect and nurturance for people so everyone can hold their head high and take pride in their own surroundings. I think that's crucial. I do want to say that in terms of neighborhood safety, it has actually improved in some ways, perhaps not related to property damage, but as far as shots fired. The shots fired in 2020 did increase, not shootings, but shots fired into the air. I think with all the tensions from COVID and the right wing, left wing, violent conversations going on, but with COVID, people were just itching, just about to burst out of their skins to get out there and do something, and I think that's part of the reason for that, for the shots fired. But our clearance rate for local crime has increased. That means crime solved. That has increased in the past couple years. There may be more to report on this in the next couple months, as more statistics come in and so on. But that's part of what I know at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, go ahead.
Well, I was going to also mention, there's two things here. The people who are causing this property damage, and also the frightened people who are having their homes or lawns or cars, hurt in some way. So a city can only, I think, do some things. A city can set the tone of respect and caring as much as possible. Also, a city can take a look at the leadership of their police department, because that has so much to do with how things are solved and the interaction of the police with, for instance, the property owner and the people who have done this. But another thing that I think the city can do, and I'm pretty proud of how Beloit has done this in the past, and I know we're going to continue to do that. We also need to try to make sure that the streets are in good condition in our poorer communities. I mean, we have to show somehow that we have a civic caring about communities that are struggling with poverty and perhaps a little bit of higher crime. So whatever we can do to help with, trash pickup and helping with city streets, and also making sure that none of our houses have a problem with lead pipes and things. These are also the kind of really the city's responsibility. so that these places can be looked at with some pride.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. All right, so Sherry, we're gonna come over to you for our next question. So please throw me out a number and I'll let you know if it's been taken.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure nobody has selected number 13 yet.
You know, that's Western society, right? The number
It
13.
is.
Like,
It's
what's
just
wrong
like-
with the number 13? Poor number 13. So, okay, so here you are for number 13. Let's call it lucky 13. Water runoff worsens Beloit's water quality, and large gas-powered vehicles are a source of air and noise pollution. So, what initiatives would you take to address this situation?
Mhm. I think it's been mentioned a couple times in regard to other questions that our water utility is updating itself as much as possible to handle matters of water runoff and so on in the most clean climatic way possible. I had another thought on that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
Okay. Could
do
you,
want to
oh,
take
I see the question on the screen here.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, well, I wanted to be sure to mention large gas-powered vehicles, because we did work as a council last year and with staff, of course, and the city manager, working on making our bus routes more efficient. Those are very large vehicles, and it can be startling in a smallish community like Beloit to smell diesel smells wafting through the air and seeing that the buses were not being well utilized. So we've become more efficient about that. And I certainly think that is a step in the right direction. Also, we have electric repowering stations set up, and there will be more of those in the future that will also help encourage people, encourage consumers when they're looking at automobiles for themselves to consider electric or hybrid vehicles.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Clinton or Nancy, you want to mention that? I know you've both sort of said some things about this already. Clinton, why don't we come over to you and then we'll come to Nancy for any further comment.
Yeah, I was waiting for Sherry was going to finish. I was going to mention the charging stations downtown by the YMCA. We're doing that, and that's a initiative we're doing to make sure that we're encouraging people to have electric charging vehicles that they can have access to those downtown when they come visit. So that's just a small part, and I think we can all agree that electric vehicles are probably going to be more prevalent in the future. So as we can get ahead of the curve on that and start putting more of those in, we'll be able to be a leader in this county for that.
Okay, all right. Nancy, you want to round us out here?
Well, I do, and I'm so pleased to see what's happening with our major car companies making the commitments, to have electric cars in the future, which means we're going to have a big influx within some, I think, relatively quickly. This is really such a change from back in the days. I remember when I was at the chamber and we were having an event, and I had not realized that if you bought a large car, heavy car, you actually got tax breaks. I mean, so again, it's so often that we have to have all of our areas of government working together so we can help. But we are aware of the need to also make sure that we are being as helpful as we can to whatever clean changes we can make in the city.
Okay, all right. So let me come over to you then, Nancy, for our final question then.
Okay, how about number 10?
All right. What is your strategy for managing future growth in the city of Beloit, given the limited ability to grow our city's footprint? I mean, again, these are some really in-depth questions. I'm glad we've having a chance to get to them. So we've put it in the chat as well. So go ahead.
Well, as we know, that's why, like, for instance, the Chamber and also Visit Beloit, we call it Greater Beloit because we don't have much place to grow. And that makes our growth even more important. So we've talked a lot about this at the council level, about the infilling, you know, being able to build where there's a lot that doesn't have a house on it, or perhaps has a house that's in such disrepair, it's going to be taken down. So these are the ways that the city has to give some impetus, usually financial, to make sure that we do some good infill in the city of Beloit, so we have more residential places especially.
Okay. Sherry or Clinton? Sherry, can I come to you for some comment on this question?
Certainly, thank you. Well, I think the community cooperation that Nancy just brought up is an important element here, and realizing that Beloit is perhaps the trunk of the tree, but there are many nearby branches. And as we move forward in time, cooperation with outlying townships, for instance, helps increase availability of housing in Beloit. We had one township resident request a change to city status for sewer purposes, but that will be happening too, because there are islands within the city that do not actually belong to the city. And as you would expect, there are many rules and regulations regarding that. But on at least a case-by-case basis, we may have people coming to us and asking to become a part of the city, and our services then will be available to them and so on. We always keep lower income people in mind, and making sure or offering more available safe housing to them is very important. We've also reviewed plans for multi-family dwellings. So that's another way to go. So there's no 100% perfect answer, but we make progress, I believe, in various directions to help answer that question.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sherry. Clinton, go ahead and bring us up here.
Yeah, so I know Nancy was mentioning infill development, and two great examples of that in our community are the Riverbend Stadium. That's a great project, and then also the Angel Museum, which is being restored for Visit Beloit. So we are really seeing some good development there. Another one that we'll be monitoring in the future is the potential redevelopment of Telford Park. I know that's something that's been on everybody's mind. There is no plan for that currently, but when and if we get to that point, we will definitely have public input. So that would be one thing just for people to keep an eye out for. I know that was something that people kind of saw coming because of the downtown stadium being built. So that'll be something just for the public to keep an eye out for.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Could I interject?
Go ahead.
One very quick comment.
Go ahead.
And that is that this particular council is made up of people who believe in government transparency. So that's important to keep in mind. As plans go forth in different directions, or as plans start to be made, we'll be informing the public and asking for feedback from them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sherry. So we've run through 2 rounds of questions. And so the final question that I'm going to ask, we're going to call this moderator's choice question. And so I'll ask this will be for everyone. And then we'll move after you all offer your responses, we'll move to your final statements. Okay. So your closing statement. So here's the question that I have for you. What is one thing that you have done as a member of the city council of which you are most proud? And that adds on to, so what is the main item then that you want to see achieved in the next council session? So it's a two-part question. First, what are you proudest of that you've done? And then what do you hope to see achieved in the next session? So who'd like to get us started off? Let me see if I can. Okay. Okay. So Sherry, I saw you raise your eyebrows, so I'm going to take that as I'm going to take that as a start.
Teacher, don't you know what that means?
That means it worked. Well, we
No,
could
I'll
go
be
ahead.
glad to go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead. Go
sorry.
ahead.
Okay, thank you. I mean, when I look at the accomplishments of the council, we've done a lot of things. We've managed the COVID crisis, and perhaps, although that's very recent, and we had to react to a situation that was affecting not just Beloit, of course, not just Wisconsin, but the entire nation and the entire world. I believe that the way that we helped handle that is something of which I'm very proud. And also, in a general sense, I'm very proud that our council has done a lot to generate dialogue back and forth, inviting comments from people, positive, negative, or suggestions, and responding back to them. So I'm very proud of those two things. Now, the second part of the question was what?
So the second part is, what do you hope to sort of be proudest about, or what do you hope to see accomplished in the next council session?
Mm-hmm. Well, as we start to move out of COVID, more events will be happening throughout the city. And I think although 2020 was a real kindling box, you know, of action, reaction, violence, drama, I really hope that we will be able to put a calmness, help bring more of a calmness to the city and show people by example that we can work together, we can dialogue together. There may be some anger. There's understandable anger about certain issues. There's understandable sorrow about certain issues. But I look forward to helping people communicate and tell us their concerns and work with them. There are a couple of very practical things coming up that I touch on in my closing remarks, so I can be quiet now for a few minutes.
Okay, understood. All right, Clinton, go ahead.
Yes, I've always, when it comes to these questions about what you've done individually, I'm always personally never a crazy big fan of these because we are a group of 7 and we need 4 of us to pass anything. So it's definitely a team effort no matter what we try to introduce or pass. One thing personally though that I've tried to push and reform on was the marijuana possession for the city of Beloit. It was $300, and for the longest time, that was actually unequal footing to a first offense battery or a first offense carrying a firearm into a public building. I thought that did not coincide or make much sense. And I know that we're seeing a big push for some reforms and trying to be more equitable. And I thought it was a little unfair for someone who had a small bag of marijuana to be treated as somebody who was committing batteries. So we pushed to reform that, and thankfully my colleagues did agree with that, and we did lower that. So I want to thank Sherry and Nancy for agreeing with that, and also my other colleagues on the council who may be in attendance listening to this tonight. That was a good reform that we did. Something I'm looking forward to in the upcoming term would probably be just getting back to normal. I serve on the DBA board, and we've seen events get canceled, events get changed. And for example, the Beloit Farmers Market, I volunteered almost every weekend there, and we started off with about 27 vendors. And that's a lot smaller than our farmers market usually is. We have the second largest farmers market in the state of Wisconsin, and 27 is not what we're used to. But this year, it looks like we're going to be closer to capacity. We're getting much closer. So I'm very excited to see what the events may look like. We have a very creative staff there at the DBA. Shauna is absolutely amazing, and I know she's creative. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what normal is going to look like in the future, how we get to that, and watch us slowly progress.
All right, thank you. And Nancy, come finally to you.
Well, for people who know me well, this might be something a little bit unusual for me to focus on. But I have to say that I am extremely proud of the financial state that the city of Beloit is in. And that is due, really, I'm not saying it is certainly in any way me, but for the wisdom of the council to, first of all, not our council, but another council chose Lori Luther Curtis for her handling of our finances. You know, if you read any national newspapers, cities right now coming out of 2020 are in just catastrophic state financially. And I'll tell you what, we have great shepherds of our finances in the city of Beloit. And Lori, and I'm telling you, Eric Miller is superb. So I would like to tell all my other Beloit citizens, you have a right to be proud and pleased that we have come out of this still as a healthy entity as far as the city government. And as far as the second, sort of where my emphasis would be on the next 2 years, you know, it takes a while to get your feet wet and to really know what you're doing here. And if the citizens give me the opportunity to win a third term, I am the council representatives on the Equal Opportunities Commission. And we are really finally getting moving. I mean, talk about a huge area of concern within our city. And I'm very pleased. Thank you, Clinton. We have some wonderful new people on that commission. And so I'm looking forward to really working with this and really having some action as far as fair housing goes. So,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so we have reached the end of the questions we're going to ask. And so now I'd like to have each one of the candidates just give us you know, your brief sort of closing remarks. And let's see, Nancy, I'm going to start with you and I'm going to go to Clinton and then to Sherry. All right, so go right ahead, please.
Well, here is where I know I should have probably written some things down. But I'm just going to say it's been my privilege. I love it at this time of my life to be able to really be of, I think, some service to the community that I've loved all my life and had just so much fun and meaning from our community. So I'd like you to give me a chance to win again, and I'll tell you, I'll make you proud. And as another little addendum, there are just so many things, but certainly the whole issue of our diversity and inclusion is going to be really important to me. We've been so lucky in Beloit. We have people last summer when Sherry was talking about the demonstrations. And once again, we are a community that is diverse, but we are also small enough where we can communicate and get things done. And I'm looking forward to helping in that way. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Clinton, we'll come over to you, please.
Thank you. So Nancy, I didn't write anything down either, so it's okay. So I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the Beloit Chamber of Commerce, and the Wisconsin Health Professionals for Climate Action. And I also want to thank our moderator, Ron Watson. It was really good. It was less painful than I thought, and I appreciate it. You were awesome, so thank you for that. Yeah, I do want to remind people just to get out and vote, and not only go out and vote, tell your friends. April elections are unfortunately very low turnout elections. And we need to show people in our community that we are listening and that we are getting out and being active. So go vote, text your friends, tell them if you can get 3 people there, we can really increase turnout. And I really want to take the rest of the time to advocate that we need to select a team. That's what you're doing. You're selecting a team for the city council. And we have 3 open spots left on this team. And I really believe that it takes a team to move this city. And I believe I'm a good fit for that team, but I also believe that I want Nancy and Sherry as my teammates. So please, if you're going to go vote and I'm lucky enough to earn your vote, I hope Sherry and Nancy earn your vote as well. We need to continue driving the city forward, and there's nobody else that's running that I'd rather have than those 2 women. So once again, go vote, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Clinton. And last but certainly not least, Sherry, please.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you, Clint. And I agree with you. We work together well as a team. We're not running as a threesome. Each of us brings his or her own strengths and abilities, but we do mesh together very well. And I also agree, it takes a while to get your feet fully wet. There's a lot to learn as we go. I wanted to thank the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, NAACP, and the Wisconsin Health Professionals for Climate Action, and our host, Ron Watson, for pulling together this forum. I know it took a lot of extra effort during this unusual time of important social distancing. In 2020, we saw our share of challenges and accomplishments. We met COVID-19 head on. Through our efforts and those of our important partners, partnership being a really key element that is getting stronger all the time for the city of Beloit. We alerted residents to the seriousness of the pandemic. We successfully promoted COVID testing. And last spring, we became one of the first cities in Wisconsin to enact local safety requirements that later included face coverings. At last night's city council meeting, we passed a resolution declaring March 1st as COVID-19 Memorial Day. And as we have mentioned tonight, we also voted to take action on an application for a $100,000 grant from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services to fund a promotional campaign showing the safety of the COVID-19 vaccine within Beloit's underserved communities and administer the vaccine. And once again, partnership comes into play. We're partnering with Beloit Area Community Health and Community Action. Other 2021 projects that I'm looking forward to include the opening of ABC Riverbend Stadium after the Snappers get their season underway at Pullman Field in Telfer Park. And the Ho Chunk Nation Entertainment Complex will almost certainly be approved this year and begin construction. So there will be a lot for us to do to help weave these major changes into our city structure. I'm proud to serve as a city councilor alongside Clint and Nancy and the others who are currently council members. I'm never too proud to listen to residents' concerns and try to find successful answers. I believe in our rights as American citizens to communicate freely and respectfully with one another. And communication and optimism are two of the strengths I bring to city council. Also a tendency to make bad puns, but I think a good groan is worth it. So I will appreciate your vote and everyone going out to vote, no matter who you support, at the spring election on April 6th. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Sherry. And as we wrap up, I'll just say briefly that it has been my absolute pleasure to be involved with this important civic event this evening. Our 3 candidates, Sherry, Nancy, and Clint. It's been just a delight to hear you answer these questions. I also want to thank those out in the community who contributed the questions. These were outstanding questions, and we changed up format a little bit because we couldn't decide which of these questions we should ask, right? So we decided to sort of let fate decide. But these are just extraordinary questions. We're looking forward to. I'm certainly looking forward to your participation in the next debate. I wouldn't say debate, but the next conversation that we'll have in a couple of days for school board. But at the same time, I also want to thank you all for your participation tonight. Being here and supporting local government is extraordinarily important, especially in a city like ours that has many challenges, but many, many more assets. And I'm sort of proud to be a member of this community. So thank you so much. Thanks to our sponsors who've already been mentioned, but I'd like to thank them again for their support. And with that, Maggie, I will pass over to you for any final comments.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ron. And thank you, Clinton, Nancy, and Sherry, for being with us tonight and all of our attendees. I think Ron did a great job closing us out. The only, comment that I'll add that he touched on is if you look into the chat, we have our registration link if you would like to join us for the Thursday candidate forum with the school board. And without further ado, I will bid you farewell and hope you all have a great rest of your evening. And we will send the recording to everybody that attended tonight's call as well. So thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.